Hey, what's going on? So, this is a quick walkthrough video for an investor. A couple things you want to talk about here. If the roof looks okay, they just strap on the gutters. A lot of times that's caused by ice dams, so you want to fix your thermal bypass, thermal bridging, improve insulation. Also, the upper chimney structure is fine. However, you need a cap and screen. Also, if you notice, the windows are vinyl. They're not the best windows. There's going to be some repairs needed in vinyl siding, which basically means no lead, right? Or not much lead. So if you look at the beginning, I'm sorry, the front of the building here, you'll notice that it's stone. And looks like an 1890s house with a crawl space. And the crawl space has got stone, and of course it's typical. So moisture does get in there, but there's no there's no flooring and there's no vapor barrier. Anyways, moving along. So the gutters probably need to be cleaned. Okay, the roof is good. The other lower roof I couldn't get to. Okay, and you can see that it's a little. The roof isn't level, but you know what? There isn't a house that's 100 years old that isn't level. Sometimes, if it's an issue, you could add some bracing, cross bracing. Here you can see how this piece of metal is covered in rotted wood. So the sills are definitely rotted. This is temporary, but it works. So you might want to caulk it and paint it. Okay, and it looks like they brought in a 100 amp service. These window walls will permit some moisture to come in. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. This is not the original garage. It's a 2.5 car garage. The garage door is all messed up. The rails are messed up and the inside's messed up. But the garage is probably 20 years old. Okay, it does have vinyl. And you can see the roof might have some tarps on the end because it leaks. So you probably have to do a repair. And then these trees are way too close to the house. You can see here, the tree has got roots. The roots got in a drain tile. And so it's going to be problems. It's going to cause issues, with the gutters and roofing. And then here's the back door. And that's a patio that was locked I couldn't get to. And those rails are generally not that strong. So it is sealed and not accessible. And I would not make that accessible. Okay. And you can see maybe some window maintenance. The backyard's got a lot of stuff. Fences are old. Now here's the inside of the garage. And you can see how the roof, leaks. So fix the roof. There might be some sheeting, but this garage is probably 20 some years old. The roof needs to be replaced, and see how the water's starting to cause problems. So we need to fix the garage. We need to stop it from leaking. And then electrical needs to be redone. That rail's completely broken. Now this is what's behind the garage, and that tree's too close, causing problems. So you're gonna need a dumpster to clean up this property. The garage also has some wind damage, and you can see some of the vinyl siding, gutters. There's all kind of stuff on the roof. So the roof will have to be torn off, and yes, that'll be a repair. You could also see the siding is covering a defective garage. These were wood sidings that had class action losses. They all rotted out, so they resided over it. Maybe the garage is closer to 25, 30 years old. Okay, and of course, there's a lot of debris around the property, and the garage soffits need to be painted and repaired, and the gutters need to be cleaned and sealed, and loose siding. So yeah, there's work. Um, this looks like they're having a fire pit in the middle of the driveway with couches. So probably, I'm not sure that meets any ordinance. Hey, thanks for coming on. We call this an inner city uh, fire pit. Anyways, of course, I had to take a picture of it. And oh yeah, there's our little basketball. I could probably shoot that one. So now there's the side of the house, and you can see how the trees are way too close, and that's why the building had problems. And you can see the right now, a squirrel's going to get up into the attic. There's going to be problems with animals in the area that we can't get to because the squirrel's definitely up in there. So I would say cut these trees down, get rid of them. Okay, looks like somebody's working in here. The plumbing's been replaced. There's a few S traps. The water's turned off. The electric's turned on, and gas is off. And so this kitchen isn't too bad. I mean, it's really beat up, but if you look at it, you could probably clean this thing up and make adjustments. This flooring, I have no clue where it came from. It didn't come from this house. The doors need to be painted and some of the locks, and it's kind of sloppy plumbing, but the bottom line is that the plumbing has been replaced and redone. That's the bottom line. Whether it's sloppy or not, I'm sure nobody pulled a permit. And the windows, some are older and newer, but most of them are vinyl. Okay, those are rails going upstairs. And hey, thanks for coming on. Yeah, thanks for Yep, I did. Thank you for the reading the poems. Thank you very much. Anyway, so we're going upstairs. The rails are bad. The stairs are kind of dangerous. Now let's just talk about the interior. I don't, obviously, the walls aren't bad. The ceilings aren't bad. There's some cracks, but you know what? For being 100 years old, this house is. I know it looks bad with all this garbage and stuff in there, but all we got to do is paint it. And then it all had fans, and I'm sure we got to replace a few of the fans. Fans are kind of a pain. I would probably just take them down. Carpets were kind of old, bad. Maybe you want to give it a shot and clean them. Maybe, it's going to be a rental property. That's the back door. You can see how it's all sealed up because we can't get to the flat roof. And maybe the carpets can be cleaned, okay? And I'm sure I would have to say the walls probably have a lot of new drywall. This place was rehabbed once before. Somebody spent a lot of money on it. Okay, and this is the upstairs units. You have to repaint, do some patching, light globes, little stuff. That's the back door that's sealed. All right, now I don't know how to fix this, but the stair treads are just too short. These are dangerous steps for anybody, especially people with big feet. I would definitely not have carpets on them. I would probably take the carpets off, repair. There's a few damaged steps, fix those, and then you might want to paint them pink or orange or something so people can tell that they're dangerous because they're only like 6 inches, 7 inches, and your foot kind of hangs off, so you could easily trip, especially with carpets. The walls are good. Yeah, of course, I'm going to take a picture. Probably the only hole in the basement. Your shower's not bad. Okay, so you might have to snake the drains, but you can see how the shower enclosure is good. The bathroom isn't bad either. I mean, maybe we got to clean it up. There's a GFI. Okay, the walls do have stains. The furnace actually isn't bad either. It's there's no air conditioning, but it's old, but not that old. So I think we'll be okay with that. Same with the water heater. Here's our crawl space. Now, the crawl space does have exposed soil, but guess what? Look, it's kind of dry in here. Okay, and maybe you clean this up, and there's also asbestos containing material on some of the pipes, the white tape and stuff. So wear a mask. Clean this whole thing out. You might have to tuck point those stones. They're loose, and they do need mortar joints. And you might want to put a vapor barrier down like plastic. Okay, let's back it up here. I kind of jumped a little bit too fast here. Okay, and you can see how a little bit of moisture. So you need to run a dehumidifier. Okay, some of these pictures are a little bit out of focus. Okay, now in the basement we do have some older tiles, and these tiles could be asbestos type, as long as you're not sanding them. But the floor wasn't like flooded or anything, so I thought it was okay. There's your plastic plumbing, so most of the house is plastic and copper coming in from the street, so it's not galvy. That's a good thing. You might need a jumper cable. You might need insulation around the perimeter. There's a water heater. Looks like it's in pretty good shape. And there was some settlement. You can see how they put this new beam in there next to the old one. And that's what people do. Okay. Now, let's talk about the interior. One of the scope was to look at the walls. And you know what? I couldn't because they're all covered. And I did look at them, and they did look somewhat straight. And you could see the plastic paneling and a sub pump. And this basically, and you can see the cold air return is not connected either. So, these homes, it's called the Cleveland drop. No one ever collects the cold air return. So that's something you could always do is connect the cold air returns to minimize basement negative pressure. Bottom line is, it's been waterproof. Now, this waterproofing system, you can see the plastic panel, and the plastic panel and the waterproofing system is by a company. I'm going to guess Ohio State Waterproofing. This is their MO. Plus, they put an Easy Breathe machine in. So somebody paid anywhere from 12 to 15 grand to waterproof this. So even if the walls are cracked, they are somewhat level. Now look at this. They even put a 100 amp service, and you can see the 100 amp line, that gray line on the far right top corner. So that's a 100 amp panel. There is knob and tube in the house too, a little bit, but they did do a lot of rewiring. There might be a couple open grounds, reverse polarities. I didn't really check. There's your gas meter. The gas lines are old, and yes, you probably gonna have to do a pressure test, and you might even find a few gas leaks. Now, I didn't see any obvious wood-boring insects or powder post beetles, any activity like that, but you could see, how we got to at least clean it up, right? And there's old stains from old leaks, and the sub pump. I recommend a battery backup. Also recommend, to seal the lid so moisture doesn't rise out of it. And here's some old pipes, and you can see this is the old pipe going outside, so it's plastic, and then there's a compression fitting, and then it goes to galvy. So maybe replace the fixture to the outside to maybe a frost-free fixture. That's for plumbing, and there's also galvanized gas lines. Here's our new electrical panel. Yes, 100 amp breakers up on top. There's our 100 amp wire. And this account supports aren't done right, but you know what? It's not going anywhere. Now the bathroom out of focus. It was very dark. All the windows were boarded up and covered, so I had to do this with a flashlight. And sometimes you get a little bit out of focus. But the bathroom toilet was taken out, so you maybe could put that back in, and the plumbing was abandoned, so you might want to add that. The white tape on the ductwork could be asbestos. Here's our steps coming down. We need rails and handrails, okay? And our comm support looks okay. That's an alarm system. I don't know if it works, okay? There's your Easy Breathe machine. And so that's the MO of a probably Ohio State waterproofing. And they're not cheap, and so they do outside and inside, mostly inside waterproofing. That's why you've got white panels. Now, I have no clue what the walls look like, but the bottom line is there's no water in there, and this system's taking care of it, and it's removing the moisture into the sub pump. So now this thing usually is supposed to turn on and suck air out of the house. They call it, they say it's easy breathe. But I won't get into that. I just know that this is probably an Ohio State waterproofing. Now, electrical, there are some sloppy wiring. That's a knob and tube. So there's a combination. So, any splices you want to put into a junction box. The stacks are newer. You can see that. And I don't know if it's still plastic in the walls. It may be, it may not be. Okay. There's a couple columns installed. There's our stairs going up. And that's it for the pictures. So, for the most part, hey, thanks for coming on, everybody. For the most part, this is I do these kind of inspections for people that don't want reports for a little bit less money. I don't like check every outlet, every window, none of that. I just kind of go through it and get the big ticket items. The value of this house, I was told, it was actually not a bad price. So the big good things on this house are the main roof isn't bad, okay? The garage, even though it's beat up, it needs to be repaired. It is not the original garage. It's a 2.5 car garage. That's a plus. The siding isn't the greatest, but it's not wood peeling lead paint, right? So that's another plus, even though there's loose sections that got to be repaired, including some soffits, including on the garage itself. The windows aren't the old sash cores, right, which are always full of lead, so they've been redone. Even though we know that the wood under the trim is rotted, it's still better than being leaded, so it might be easier to pass the lead clearance test. The interior walls weren't too bad, even though there's some holes in doors, and doors need to be repaired. It wasn't bad. The kitchens, needs a little bit of work. It's not like we got to redo the whole kitchen. It's not like we got to redo the whole bathroom. Maybe we put an air conditioner that doesn't have it, but the furnace probably going to work. We might want to connect our cold air returns, clean our ducts, change a filter, that kind of thing. The crawl space is typical. These are vented crawl spaces, and I didn't see vents outside, but I also didn't see water and flooding in there either. So, if the house didn't smell musty, maybe we're okay. Worst case is we have to, put some kind of vapor barrier down, clean that crawl space up. And the driveway, was a little bit beat up, but it was functional. So and electrical, 100 amp service. So there was quite a bit done to this house. I'm going to guess that it went through a couple different rehabs, and then the recent tenants really kind of trashed the place and left a lot of garbage, which needs to be cleaned up. And I heard the story from what happened here was apparently prior tenants weren't paying rent. They were evicted, and then somebody down the street apparently had a great idea. He could rent the house out to somebody, even own it. And I heard they rented it out to somebody, and the neighbor or somebody down the street was collecting rent. Finally, had to get rid of them. So that's kind of a crazy story. Folks, if you ever rent a house, you better make sure it's the landlord, isn't the guy down the street. So all in all, I know the house looks bad. It's kind of beat up, but it's really not that bad shape, for the price. I'm not going to disclose what the price was. If the price was high, then of course, I would say something, but I think it's a good deal. Anyways, hey, you guys, thanks for coming on. This is just a walkthrough type video on a home inspection I just did today at, I don't know, at 1:30. And please rate, subscribe. Hey, I have a book on Amazon called Fix Your Toxic Home and Live Longer. Check it out. It's also an Audible. It's not that expensive. I got another book coming out about don't get ripped off on waterproofing, maybe in about 2 months, so check me out on that. Please rate, subscribe, and share. And if you want to friend me on Facebook, go for it. Thanks for coming on.